There's a situation right now involving two content creators. Celia, who went to a podcast with Madam Speaker, and when she got there, she just felt as if she was not received well. The interview might have gone well, but immediately the cameras went off. She says, Madam Speaker seemed like she was just not interested, even in having a small conversation with her, and she speaks about it, Celia, that is, speaks about it within the context of, what? I just then asked, can you just remove the episode? It's not what happened in the interview. It's something you can call continuity. Continuity I've talked to you about this. What do you make of it? Yes, we had the conversation as we were recording, but what do we do with it? Now, I'm saying this because I think there's a lesson here for podcasters, especially people that are just out there. You might be an activist, yes, but there is that aspect of continuity. I want to illustrate here, and I have a lot to present in this episode. So please stay tuned. Please do like the video. If you do, I think this is an area any of us can fault in. Any of us. And if we now start saying, I made this effort, we may not realize that we didn't have good continuity in that particular relationship. And I want to show you where I believe this starts. If you listen to what Celia said in the interview, in the beginning, this is what it says.
When I apologized verbally, repeatedly. Each time I get a chance, I do apologize to her for the 3-year-old incident, because I feel like had I acted at that time, had I not been manipulated or allowed myself to be manipulated at the time.
You see that part there? That's it. You want to understand why she feels like, just delete the episode. Forget talking about the money thing that you're talking about and all those kind of things. Forget all of those things. It won't help you build continuity. And I want to say this as a point of caution, because if you're not careful, you can get taken by how much you've spent and lost and what and all these things, and not realize that you created a conversation with someone where they bonded with you to that point of saying, there's this relationship. She lives this. You have to remember, she lives in this place where she feels like she could have done something to avoid the traumas of a child, right? You can't talk to them and just not have a continuity to that. Now, however that happened, you might think, we handled it. But you see, when you're talking to people, they feel burdened that they have talked to you to that point. Why should they be a cutoff, And so I want to show you this with a bit of a presentation form here on my part. And so this video did take a second for me to compile, so please do give this video a like, recommend it to another person. If you know a person who's a podcaster, who interviews, who talks to people, whatnot, a person who's in the public eye, a person who's a public figure, a celebrity, a friend who's a celebrity. If you know a person who's in the media space, who talks to people, they may not realize why people might feel a certain way concerning them. And I think this interview of Celia and the dispute that's going on right now and whatnot, it's something that me and you can be easily guilty of. You can take sides and take Madam Speaker's side or take Celia's side and not realize that even you are guilty of this very thing. You can say, but Ricky, the interview went well. Why does Celia feel like that? You see, once a person has poured themselves to you like that, there has to be continuity. It has to. It has to. That's why I have a ministry number and I have a personal number. Because I'm careful about that aspect of continuity. Because now, if I create this idea that I'm gonna be there every single step of the way, I get over 200-300 messages in a week. It's impossible for me to keep up with that. Okay? So if I create this facade as if I'm gonna be there and just, it can create a false narrative in that relationship. And I wanted to show it within this episode, and I hope this video does benefit you and that other person that you decide. You see, that point in that interview, I believe it tells you what is the breakup in this episode. It's the Sexuality Show. We do daily Christian commentary videos. If it's your first time over here to be sure, check out the other videos that are down in the pinned comments, and I must see you on a later on episode. And I want to use a particular story here as a backdrop. I want to use different instances where I've seen this thing. An example of this is when I went to Zimbabwe. When I went to Zimbabwe, we got stuck. I did an entire story time. If you haven't seen it, you can go check it. I'll leave it down in the description below. And I speak about how a subscriber was the one that saved me when we got there. And guess what? When we were going to when we were still in the bus going, she came when we were still at one of the resting stops, and she's like, I know that guy. And she came up to me. When she came up to me, had I been rude to her, or had I done something that didn't show the continuity? Here's this person that I watch on a daily basis. I watch their videos about theology, teaching this, or rebuking this, correcting this. And at that moment when she comes to me, to see that continuity, if I lack in that, it creates an impression. And that impression that you leave can literally mark you for your whole life. Yeah. So we can see things in our light, but then we must be very careful to see it within their light. Celia, in her videos, she speaks about how, she's looked up to her, and she sees her as a person who advocates for things. So at that moment, she's talking to someone who understands, someone who has had this type of conversations, would understand a position. When there isn't that continuity, when they finally meet you, it can create an impression that you don't want. Just like the story that I spoke about. When we got to Zimbabwe, we got stuck. Now, that lady that I spoke to during the day, that there was continuity, guess what? Her family comes to fetch her. We are there late. It's almost 9 to 10 o'clock. And the place where we are, it's not safe. And immediately, we have no phone reception. We've bought SIM cards. The SIM cards are not working. Nothing. We are stuck. And guess what? Guess what helped us? It's that subscriber that came to me and spoke to me. We had such a great conversation and whatnot. She introduces me to her family. Hi, how are you? Yes, this is a man I watch. I watch him on YouTube and so forth. And so they spent 2 hours helping us. 2 hours. The family didn't even know who we were when we got there. It was how much this person valued the continuity. Okay? That's me interpreting it. That's how much she valued. She convinced the family so much that they devoted 2 hours. We only got to the house where we got to, I think, about 11:30. They had to drive us about 20-30 minutes. There was a point I even gave up. I even said, guys, you can just drop us in any garage and leave us. And they said, we can't leave you. We're taking you exactly to the house until we find it. They don't know us. They don't know us, but it's continuity. It's that we had this conversation here. And when we get to this particular point, I'm able to see, she sees exactly what she saw on the videos. And it creates this where she feels, we gotta get you to the house. And she communicates that to her family to a point where they feel, no, we're not leaving you until we've gotten you to your house. The reason why I use this is because this is that's with a subscriber, right? And I want to create that same idea within the media space. Now, I've been in many platforms. Here we were doing a panel. That's when the first time I met Solomon and so forth and whatnot, and our interactions there formed a relationship. From there, we met there. That was the first time we met in this show where we were on this panel. created an entire relationship. Why? Lasting impressions. And you see this with the Saint twins, for example. When you get to the Saint twins, you guys will talk on the messages. Okay, you're coming on this day and this time, right? Cool. They will do that, but they will still send you a formal invitation. They want to be very clear. They will communicate with you, but then they will then go an extra step of a formal invitation. You are received very well. It's a formal invitation, and then you go there. They send you the number of the assistant. They have an assistant that you talk to before the interview and stuff like that. So should they be recording, you have an assistant directly to talk to get there, to get to the place where they're gonna be. They respond very quick. Even if you call, she's there. When you get to the set, they have a makeup artist. So in case you don't feel like, you need touch-ups, you need to touch up, they have a person who does makeup right outside, sitting, waiting for them. And you can get there and think. And when you get to the building where they shoot, the assistant is the one that helps you. Do you need water? Do you need what? Why? There are people from the industry. They understand how these things work. And so you can see reception, they've dealt with that and all those things. And these things that I'm saying about the twins, it's not just on the twins. Even when I did a show with Mel V, here I'm sitting across this guy from the US by the name of Forerunner Chronicles. He's also an apologist and stuff like that. Their reception was wild. You can see even when we are sitting on things, there's bottles of water, there's all this. They understand reception. They understand continuity. They understand how people are thinking. I try to do that. When I interview someone, I'll try and chip in on their transportation and make sure that they don't have any hassles getting to the particular place and stuff like that. Some podcasters in South Africa, they don't do that. To ease up on that, I will salute her on that. To ease up on that, because its content is, yes, it's the story that they want to tell and all that, but you are able to do that. That's a bonus. But if you are able to do the hospitality part of it, I get why you didn't have the budget for doing thingy. And also, I understand this idea, not only for being from those shows, but also being behind the camera. I used to shoot documentary recordings and whatnot and all these kind of things. And here you could see we used to do that here for the Department of Science and Technology, right? And stuff like that. I shot documentaries for them and whatnot, and we did presentations. And here you can see when we're presenting to the then Minister of Science and Technology, that's me sitting down. We're presenting our work to them right there. And so I understand how reception is important. Being not only in front of the camera, but also being behind the camera, how you deal with those type of things and stuff like this over the years of minutes. This is years ago, 2015, something like that. And then we were doing a production for the University of Limpopo here. And when we were doing that production, I would tell the gentleman that I went with what I needed, and he will go get it. And then I would go shoot some other things. He has it. He comes to me. And so that's him right there. He would go find. So I say, I want to do an interview with this person. Can you go get it? He goes and gets it. And then he brings the person where I am. He arranges other settings for interviews and stuff like that. It's that there is this working relationship of understanding how the other person helps us all. And also, apart from my media work, apart from that, and also being on shows like Moja Loves Puo and all these things, they have the same thing. They have a setting by which a sitting area, what you want, water, do you want food, what transportation, how much do you spend, do we have to fetch you, all those kind of things. They deal with those things, and you can say, yeah, they have a big budget and stuff like that. Yes, they have a big budget, but there are areas we should be able to meet them especially when it comes to how we do these shows. And if you watch the show, there is continuity at the same time. You see, the people that are on the set, I can reach all of them. Why? Because the impression that we create after. So continuity implies that what I saw you as on thingy, when I come to you and we are able to have that. So those people that you see on the set, I can reach them. Why? There was continuity. What I saw them as when we were there, even when we were in person, okay? And I'll give you an example with an episode that we did when Nimrod had to interview Celia, okay? On the same story. Celia had been there on the previous season. I had to pitch it to them how to approach it differently when she appeared the second time. Because they were like, but we've covered that story. And then I re-pitched the story. And I'm like, the story is a bit complex. There's the personal side and then there's also the church side. Now let's approach it from the church side. And that's why Celia was on the show for the second time. You know, because the guys there were like, but we've shot this before. Even Nimrod was saying, wait, didn't we shoot this before? But then, because there's continuity. And when I brought the thingy as a content researcher there, they trusted the direction that I was pitching. And that's why you saw on the second episode, again, on a difference is continuity. They respect that, okay, no, Ricky can, do you get me? Continuity is such an important thing. I remember when I was shooting with Ekonaba. Ekonaba has a studio. It's a channel from Ghana and stuff like that. There is a time when you guys will sit and you'll talk, you go and eat, and we're just playing with the camera. We're talking about camera angles and what. It creates continuity. And then we'll sit on the set. Now, even if you go back to the twins thingy, right? If you go back to the twins picture, to the twins thing, when the twins do the picture thing, that's when you get to talk, because sometimes they shoot episodes in bulk. They don't have time. They don't have a lot of time. So when they shoot, the time when they're taking the pictures, it's when you guys get to talk. Oh my goodness, the story, blah, blah, blah. It's continuity. Now, even when, to show you this, very same idea that I'm talking about, I did an interview with Brother Muzi Ntabela, right? And Brother Muzi is a celebrity and stuff like that. But because there was such continuity in our conversations on the podcast, when we met, when I called, and all that stuff, till date we'll still talk. Till date we still talk. And even the first time when I met him, when we went to Tinamchita, the way we were talking, you would have thought I have known him for like 10 years. You would have thought how I had known him for 10 years. Because continuity is such an important part of thinking. That's what creates the impression. Continuity implies when I came to you and I spoke to you, I poured my heart out concerning this thing. How you took that thing leaves the impression. That's the impression. That's the lasting impression that we then have. Another example again, when I met Utabiso, okay? When I met Utabiso, it was through his Instagram post. I kept watching his Instagram post for him to post something. The moment he posted something and then I commented, I'd love to interview you. Now, this is what continuity does. With Tabiso, we still talk till date. We were supposed to shoot something in December. We just didn't find time, okay? And also, I didn't have electricity. So, with Utabiso, you'll remember we had such a great interview. We ended up not just doing one interview. We ended up doing almost 2 different interviews. And then we did another one. Again, we did a Bible study one. And that would only lead later on to me meeting Auspalesa. Continuity is that the person that they saw on the video is that it creates this form. We don't just do that with people that are maybe popular, but we also do that even to the least people. Okay? Now that's why I gave you that story about the subscriber. When you go to these media meetings, here I was at the Black Magic event that was held, I think around the Auckland Park area and stuff like that. When I got there, I met a subscriber. continuity. That person then advised me on certain things, adding certain elements towards the show and all those kind of things. Continuity. It creates the impression of how I see you. When you form this type of relationships with people, it can leave an impression that speaks for you or speaks against you if you're not careful, right? I was invited to shoot a documentary of King Makosonke's thing. This is a cultural event. It's a big event. It has kings that come there. You see me there interviewing one of them and stuff. And this event, we met this lady, the lady in red. She's originally from South Africa, but she stays in the US now. She came with visitors from outside the country and whatnot. So I was there to shoot this documentary of this event. Why? Because I have a relationship with one of the people there, and so it creates continuity. It creates relationships outside of where they know me. It creates relationships outside. It creates opportunities outside of all of that. Now, this idea of the person on the camera is the same person that I am going to meet. It's what we call a lasting impression. Think about it. On this channel, people have seen me move from my mom's house to this small little studio where I could barely fit 3 tripods, right? People have seen me go through that entire thing. They saw me moving out of that space. They saw me move into a bigger studio, which is the studio that I'm at right now, right? When I moved in, this is how it looked. Now it looks a bit different because there's a lot more equipment around and whatnot. But what has that done? It has built a form of a relationship with these people. That's why I said the first time I went skydiving, that was because of a subscriber on the channel. There was continuity. You see, the person that they saw in person, the person that they saw in person aligned with what they saw on the channel. We must be careful about that. When I go to do an interview, I always go with my assistant, you know. Always, you know. Always, I always have him there, so that there's these things that he can do, so that I can have conversations. So if we need to, if we wrap up an interview where I'm packing, I'm able to go and have a conversation with the person that I was interviewing or whatever while he finishes up packing. If I forget something, he's able to remember it. The other times when I've gone to record without him, I end up forgetting the footage. And I have to now travel back again and go and get the footage. Because there's this bonding and relationships that we create when we are with people. So when we are on the camera, we must remember these things. We must remember that people have a viewpoint of us. And I believe here, it was an issue of continuity. You know, it's a very slight thing. A person can feel like, yeah, I've done enough. But then there's this area where after she poured herself into that thingy and being that vulnerable, and, you know, she wants to tell you about this other aspect. Hey, man, you know, I can also bring you evidence and so forth and all those kind of things. And so because you guys are now at that point where she can hand over evidence to you, continuity creates that environment where the impression, what is the impression? You can talk, you know, we did an interview with the Queen Kazega, right? That interview is an example of that. When with high profile figures like Abu Kazega, the thing is that they have a list that they'll send you before, right? So you know, please make sure that there's water, make sure that there's snacks. Why do they do that? They do that so that to avoid this type of a situation. You know, they do that to avoid a situation where they just don't feel okay being on that set or working with you at that moment and stuff like that. So it's very easy to take one side and not see what the other side is talking about. Now I thought, let me bring that here. There's that which we can talk about. Let's be careful about continuity. And the Mwase family, they were talking about a situation where the wife got bonded herself to a certain man who she was acting with. If you remember that episode, it talks about the dangers of acting, because now she bonded herself and she felt like sending this guy messages and what and why this was happening, and why continuity. It's a very dangerous tool. It's something that can happen and you're not even aware what has happened. It's a very small thing. It's easy. That's why I'm saying it's very easy to look at the interview and say nothing happened, and not realize. If you listen to the weight of the conversation, the level at which the person has poured themselves into you, that is what we call a lasting impression, because it's going to create an environment. She has to talk like to you and like, hey, you know what you think about this part. It's going to happen. Very, very easy a place to err. So that's why I'm giving all these scenarios of how, when you want to interview people, it comes with that. You must understand, for some people, when you're interviewing them, they go back. There's a moment they draw back and they almost go back into the pain, because it's a real thing to them. To you, it's just a conversation. To them, it's a real thing. This is something that she's living with. And so continuities become such an important thing. The interview that I did with Sihle shows you exactly that. There's a moment where Sihle draws back straight into the emotions. I had to tap her out of it, right? And say, hey, we are here. And, and then it wakes her up and then she continues talking, because it's a real thing to them. You have to understand what that feels like and what that looks like. So if you think about how much you guys have worked, and that, it's very easy to avoid continuity. Continuity means there's this moment, like if you watch her videos, she didn't explain this, but within her video when she's talking, you can hear what I'm talking about. It's just that sometimes, we like just pointing at each other fingers. We like just saying hi when you just entitled. It's not even entitlement. It's something that you yourself expect when you've talked to someone. You can talk to someone and then they say, you just brushed me off. And then you're like, wait a minute. We talked and we finished. It's continuity. It's what happened after. It's what I saw after with that whole thing. It's a whole thing, and I hope this video does kind of like leave that impression over here. That's why in churches, you will realize in the book of Acts, as a matter of fact, the Bible says they took their apostles so that the apostles could focus on the matters of the word. They appointed deacons so that they will take care of the minuscule things. In the point when he speaks about all the positions within the church, he speaks about helpers. You think helpers are there for what? So that the pastor is not just there doing everything or talking to everybody and doing it. It's that there is a help that actually allows them to function. These things we can err on. Don't just dismiss. It's an area you can fault and become. People can know you as one of the worst persons to talk to. Why? Because you are not aware that you don't have good continuity. You don't have a good continuity when you talk to people and stuff like that. So if you are talking to them and then you just go to the phone and then they show that they want to talk to you by sitting down, it's very easy to miss that. It's a very small, it's a slippery slope. It's a small little thing. It's so important, It's so important because we don't know what impression we're leaving. If you do that, it can leave an impression. And that's why I'm saying, you give grace. Life, that's what life is about. We give grace because people can err in these areas without knowing. It's an area you can actually make a mistake on and not even know you did. Until someone says, hey man, I don't feel like, because that's what you're going to see. You're going to see people who are just like, why is she feeling like, you see, the level at which they outpour themselves to you will dictate what the continuity looks like. It's Ricky's Reality Show. Do daily Christian commentary videos. If this video is a little bit long, it's because I wanted to break this thing down. It's an area you can err in and not even know. It's a slippery slope. It's Ricky. Other episodes down today, down in the comments, and I'm going to check you on the later on.